Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a totally fascinating collision of global politics, municipal infrastructure, and some seriously cutting-edge technology. We're going to map out exactly how year-to-date headline news about tariffs and trade wars, involving the very highest offices in Washington and Ottawa, connect directly to a hidden municipal waste crisis. And honestly, what's more important is how an elegant edge AI solution is stepping in to solve it. It's this incredible story of cause and effect. So let's just get right into it. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. First, the 50% tariff threat. Second, the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor. Third, the Dresden landfill panic. Fourth, the Digital Refinery solution. Fifth, the cryptographic tariff firewall. And finally, number 6, securing the bioeconomy bridge. Section 1, the 50% tariff threat. Section 338 and USMCA negotiations. To really understand the supply chain vulnerability at play here, we first have to look at Washington and the highly tense USMCA or CUSMA negotiations. U.S. President Donald Trump has invoked Section 338 to impose new tariffs on Canadian imports, and this has set off a massive geopolitical scramble. The political friction is, well, it's palpable. Just consider this recent statement from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. "I'm tired of the bully trying to take our lunch money all the time. We need to stand up to the bully, and we need to hit him tariff to tariff." Now, while we are exploring this strictly from an economic and technological perspective, this rhetoric really highlights the sheer volatility and pressure that industrial operators are currently forced to navigate. So, the crucial point is that the opening tariff bid on a wide range of Canadian imports is a staggering 50%. Now, while things like auto surtaxes and dairy quotas naturally dominate the mainstream news, this massive threat is forcing literally every single cross-border industry to scramble for protection. And that brings us to a highly vulnerable multi-billion-dollar industry that operates almost entirely out of sight. Section 2, the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor, the hidden supply chain vulnerability. Pivoting from those abstract trade policies in Washington down to the physical reality of the border, there is a massive, ongoing flow of commercial and municipal solid waste, or MSW, moving from Canada into the United States. 3.46 million tons. That is the volume of municipal solid waste shipped from Ontario straight into Michigan landfills every single year. To put that into perspective, on any given weekday, more than 200 tractor-trailer loads of Ontario garbage cross the Sarnia and Windsor border crossings. It's a critical logistics pipeline, and it relies entirely on frictionless trade. To really grasp the sheer scale of this dependency, let's look at the actual generation and disposal volumes. In 2024, Ontario generated nearly 16.9 million tons of waste. Of the roughly 12.7 million tons that ended up landfilled, over 3.4 million tons were exported directly to the U.S. Think about that. That means Ontario exports roughly 27% of its total landfilled waste south of the border. Why? Well, this happens because while residential recycling is managed by municipalities, the commercial and industrial sectors face very few domestic recycling mandates. They essentially lack the local processing infrastructure to handle it all. And on the other side of the border, Canadian waste makes up a shocking 14.35% of all trash disposed of in Michigan state landfills. For years, this system worked perfectly because of an infrastructure arbitrage. Michigan historically charged an incredibly low state-levied landfill disposal fee of just 36 cents per ton. I mean, think about that for a second. It was quite literally cheaper to put trash in a heavy-duty truck and drive it to another country than to deal with it at home. But with aggressive tariffs looming over the border, that 14% slice of the pie, it represents a catastrophe waiting to happen for Ontario. Section 3, the Dresden landfill panic, political fallout, and Bill 5. So, what happens when a jurisdiction realizes it might suddenly have to absorb millions of tons of its own commercial waste? Absolute panic. In early 2025, knowing the border situation was deteriorating rapidly, the Ontario government introduced and quickly passed Bill 5. This legislation specifically revoked the requirement for environmental assessments for the highly controversial York 1 Dresden landfill expansion. They were aiming to massively increase capacity despite the site sitting just 800 meters from residential homes. Combine this hurried expansion with the upcoming January 2026 exit of municipalities from handling industrial, commercial, and institutional waste, plus a looming 2029 clean wood landfill ban, and you've got a perfect storm of regulatory pressure. There simply isn't enough domestic capacity to handle a closed border.
Let's move to Section 4, the Digital Refinery Solution, 905 Wood and Edge AI.
The industry is completely caught right now between the anvil of closed borders and the hammer of domestic capacity shortages. On one hand, you have the reality of the physical world, chaotic construction wastes, unregulated flows, visual ambiguity, and intense border friction. On the other hand, you have the future, the high-purity biocarbon market, which demands strict circular economy standards and absolute digital proof. As detailed extensively on agent905wood.com, the 905wood Digital Refinery acts as what they call the Sentient Bridge between these two worlds. It's an elegant digital palette cleanser that transforms messy physical garbage into a highly structured, digitally verified commodity. Now, you might naturally expect a system capable of this to require, a massive $1 million server farm, right? But amazingly, the entire 905wood Digital Refinery application workflow runs directly on a Google Pixel 11 Pro operating on Android 17. By tapping into the Tensor G5 NPU and the LiteRT AI stack, the software performs offline edge AI inference in under 500 milliseconds. They are quite literally placing cutting-edge, real-time AI computing power directly into the calloused hands of yard operators working out in the dirt and dust. It's a real game changer. Section 5, the Cryptographic Tariff Firewall, the 4-step workflow. So, how exactly does a smartphone app bypass a geopolitical trade war? Well, it comes down to a really precise 4-step UI and UX workflow that translates physical sorting into an unassailable legal instrument. Step 1 is the request for quote, or RFQ in booking, where the load is scoped digitally. Step 2, upon pickup and AI classification, the platform auto-generates a certificate of origin. Step 3 is verification against complex regulatory standards. And Step 4 is compliance, where the application outputs a perfectly formatted, completely unalterable PDF document containing frozen metadata, GPS coordinates, and timestamps. Now, what's really interesting about this is the secret weapon, the specific designation HS code 382500. That auto-generated certificate of origin makes the wholly obtained good argument. It proves mathematically and cryptographically that the load in the truck is residual waste feedstock, which means it is entirely exempt from the Section 338 tariffs that are targeting standard commercial wood products. This exact piece of auto-generated PDF documentation is the ultimate firewall. It is literally engineered to keep the border open while everyone else's supply chains freeze up. And this creates what is known as explainable compliance. Think of it exactly like a passport. When tariffs hit and border security gets incredibly tight, everyone else shows up at the customs gate with a messy truck full of debris and just a verbal story, hoping to get waved through. But 905wood users, they show up with a cryptographic, sensor-backed, machine-stamped passport that auditors and border agents can instantly verify and trust. It entirely eliminates the visual ambiguity that leads to border rejections. Section 6, Securing the Bioeconomy Bridge, Financial and Strategic Impact. So why does this level of data integrity actually matter for the future of Ontario's industrial supply chain? Ultimately, it comes down to basic financial survival. Historically, that 36-cent Michigan state fee enabled this cheap, cross-border reliance. Now, there is a proposed $5 per ton fee to align with regional averages, which coincidentally mirrors the circle rate for clean, digitally verified wood. But the terrifying reality for unverified waste is surging future landfill fees, approaching $60 a ton as domestic capacity vanishes and tariffs block cheap exports. The financial gap between those using digital refinery workflows and those relying on outdated paper manifests, it's going to widen exponentially. By operationalizing the Google Pixel 11 Pro and the LiteRT AI stack, the 905wood Digital Refinery secures Ontario's leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. It turns a massive geopolitical liability into a streamlined, high-purity asset. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. As tipping fees surge towards $60 a ton and border requirements tighten to completely unprecedented levels, is your supply chain equipped with the unalterable cryptographic proof you need to survive? The capacity cliff is here. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it helps you view these shifting global supply chains in a completely new light. See you next time.